Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to our webinar today. We are excited to have Dennis Bruce, Sean Martin, and Grant Beresford from Data Masons joining us today. Today's session is easily transition to cloud-based EDI for Dynamics 365 Business Central. But before I pass it on to start with Dennis, I would like to remind you that this session is being recorded and will be posted to our on-demand webinar library for you to review and share with anyone who may have an interest. If you have any questions along the way, we have a questions box along the side. Feel free to type them in there and we will get them answered in a brief Q&A session after our presentation. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and pass it over to Dennis to get started with the presentation.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Great, appreciate it. And we appreciate everybody's time today. My name is Dennis Bruce. I'm the Director of Partner Development here at Data Masons. And along, as Keith had said, along with Grant Beresford, who is our VP of Sales, and Sean Martin, Business Development Manager, we're going to go through and talk a little about transitioning to a cloud-based EDI solution with Dynamics 365 Business Central, something we've done with a number of customers over this last year now, and we'll talk about some best practice things to look out for. So we'll talk about things that you need to consider for the migration, some of the things you need to think about, and talk to Innovia with, and ourselves with, if you're, or with ourselves, hopefully. And then we'll talk about how we can assist, and Grant will get into that component of it. We'll move to a live demonstration. We'll do that a little earlier. We're not going to go through full cycles of everything, but we just want to give you a flavor of what a true cloud-based EDI solution with Dynamics 365 Business Central actually looks like, and how we kind of, blend that line between our solution 365. So you really think, hey, I'm just really in 365 now. I don't have to learn a separate system. And then a couple of points on how we can move you to the cloud confidently, based on some things that we've done up to this point, and a little about some industry-specific capabilities that we have. And then finally, we'll just wrap this up, okay? So first of all, let me talk a little about migrations and some of those things that you really need to think about. And as we talk to customers, some of the stuff that's come up, particularly are cost of resources. So are you going to run this thing on-prem, or are you really going to go to the cloud? So we have a number of people in the nav space that, running on-prem now, do they really want to jump to the cloud? And others who are like, yep, that's where I'm going. So you got to make that decision, that call. And if you're going to the cloud, is it private? Is it public? What type of cloud solution do you want to run? Because, and then the other thing too, if you decide to stay on-prem, what about the internal resources? Okay, you're going to have them to support that environment. And those internal resources are going to have to be responsible for security. Security is huge now. If you stay on-prem, you own it, right? It's yours. So that means you've got a plan for disaster prevention, disaster recovery, damage control. Your backups need to be off-site. So the thing about if you go to cloud, and we've seen this happen with our customer base, where if somebody's on-prem and then all of a sudden they get hit with a ransomware, if they were running DMEDI in the cloud, they'd still be able to transact. They'll still be able to do processing, okay? So something you absolutely have to consider. Customizations. Have you made, Nav is a very flexible ERP. We all know that. And in the past, depending on how long you've had it running, you could have made decisions years ago because it was so flexible you could bend it to do what you wanted it to do. But if you've had it for 10 years, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, and you made customizations back then, those customizations could have be made because of a lack of functionality in EDI. We did it because this is what our trading partner wanted us to do. There's a whole host of reasons why you did that back then, but as you start to think about transitioning and migrating to the cloud, does it still make sense now, right? Did you make those changes because, hey, this is what we had to do, but my business processes have changed now. So when you look at what your process is now, you got to ask yourself, did you change your process back then to accommodate the software? Or where you, and do those changes actually make sense? Does that business process I came up with a while ago, does it really make sense as I start to migrate to the cloud? Because the new solution you have in 365, or it may be functionality that you would have in the Data Masons EDI solution, or even any new solution you go through from an ISV perspective, covers up what you had to do before, okay? So you want to look at your business processes and make sure they still make sense. The other thing you look at is time. Enough time in the day. And what does that mean? So if you're part of the EDI team, you're most likely part of the EDI project. And of course, you'll be part of the ERP project because that's where you usually help out. So there's a lot of tasks that happen when you're migrating both those systems. However, you also have a day job, and your business demands don't stop just because you start getting involved in an ERP and EDI migration. So, how many of you have a sales manager who shows up at your doorstep and says, hey, great, we just signed this new customer. When can we get them live on EDI? Well, if you're in the middle of a migration, are you going to put that on hold? Are you going to tell the company, well, we can't really do that right now because we're dealing with this? Those demands don't stop, right? So these are the things that we can help with. Data migration, you get turnaround data, right? A lot of times if you're doing customer EDI, turnaround data is a big thing. So where's that data going to reside? Is it going to sit inside your system? Is it external? If it sits external, you have more options, okay? And, or where's it going to go in the new ERP? What am I going to do with it? Other ISV solutions. When you talk about EDI, one of the more important ISV solutions that are out there would be shipping or maybe a WMS system, warehouse management, okay? What about that data? What about that system? Is that going to be able to migrate properly? Am I still going to be able to get access to that data when I have to send out my ASNs? I need that pack level detail. I need the shipping information to send out an ASN. Do I still get access to it when I move to 365? Okay. And then the integration component. How I integrate now is going to be totally different when I go to 365 in the cloud, right? So it's a different integration method. No access to SQL anymore, right? So how am I going to get that data for my outbound documents, or how am I going to get that data in to the inbound documents? And then finally, support, right? So is your current solution supported? Is it supported in D365 BC? And not just from a functional and technical perspective, also think about compliance, right, with your trading partners. Do you have support on that? So when you move, is it going to force you to have to retest with a trading partner, or can you kind of slide in the current mapping situation that you currently have now? Okay. So how can we assist? Grant?
Wow, Dennis, that's a lot of things to consider. I mean, it appears to be a bit daunting, but the good news is that Data Masons can help you. The interesting part of Data Masons is that not only are we an EDI company, but we're dead focused on pretty much exclusively the Dynamics ERP environment and ecosystem. And so as a result, our company has a tremendous amount of consulting horsepower when it comes to understanding ERP. And that's important in a few different ways. When you're looking at making this transition, with any big move in an ERP, you want to look at your processes and how you're operating today, and is there an opportunity to streamline, simplify, remove costs, remove complexity, and with our expertise and the capabilities of our EDI solution, you're able to do that. We see a lot of cases where our customers are able to take customizations that were in ERP, AX, Nav, on-premise, and eliminate them from the ERP. And this is super important because as you move into a SaaS environment in the cloud with D365, you're going to be required to upgrade multiple times a year. And so the smoother you can make the process, you can squeeze costs out of the solution and make it a lot simpler on you and your support staff. Not only can we eliminate them, but sometimes we take those customizations, maybe they're still required, but now we can make them external to the ERP and house them in the EDI solution, things like unit of measure conversions and such, or specific business rules associated with a trading partner. Now those can sit in EDI and be isolated from the upgrade process to once again provide you an easier environment and less cost. The great news about it also is this is a solution that's ready to implement today. We have many of our customers who have already made the journey from on-premise to the cloud to D365 with Data Masons EDI, and have done it very smoothly and successfully. And I think one of the things that is lost on people is that being that EDI is such a mission critical process for businesses, it presents a lot of risk typically in the go live. People are very, they think about it at the end, and then it's like, wow, we've got this really important thing. If we lose orders, that's lost revenue to the organization. And so we provide a nice, easy, incremental transition with your EDI so that you don't have to put all the risk on your go live in a big bang scenario. So that's super important. It saves you a lot of heartache, as well as you don't put revenue at risk in the process. So I'm going to transition now to Sean, who's going to give you a quick view of what Data Masons EDI in the cloud looks like.
All right, let's see if I can get my screen shared. Give me 1 second. There we go. Well, perfect. Thank you, Grant. I'd like to start with, just reiterating what Dennis had mentioned earlier and what Grant had recently mentioned. We only focus again on the Microsoft Dynamics community. We're not trying to be everything to everyone. Our core competency, is Dynamics, the D365 Business Central environment. And that's really all we try to be, and we keep a sharp focus, on the Dynamics community. We also take an external approach to EDI. So, we're not going to introduce any customizations, in the ERP, any core code changes that would impact your ability to upgrade to the next, release of Business Central. We are extremely tightly integrated, which is what I'm going to take you through, but loosely coupled. And especially with Microsoft and the Microsoft One version, where you're going to have to keep up with 8 releases a year. Two or three of those releases are going to be mandatory, because again, we don't introduce customizations in the ERP. That makes that upgrade process much simpler for our customers. So what we're going to cover today from the standpoint of an introduction to Data Masons EDI is that we are 100% browser-based, user interface. So we're going to cover that. We're going to also talk about some of the key KPIs that are in Data Masons from our dashboard, all the key performance indicators that really give you everything that you need to know from an EDI perspective. We're also going to cover some of the reporting that's available in Data Masons. We're going to talk about the ability to scale automation as you expand your EDI footprint, not only with customers, but also with vendors. And then also we're going to touch on role-based security. So I'm going to start with the Data Masons dashboard. And within the dashboard, this is really all the key performance indicators that anybody who needs to focus in on EDI is going to want to see. We're going to break down things such as documents received by type, product activity summary. So we're going to take you into the detail and give you a summary of all the transactions that you're doing with the different trading partners that you're working with. This is also configurable. So I can come into the dashboard and I can move around the grid. We can set this up however I want. If you prefer to have it set up as a pie graph, a donut, a bar chart, you can change the look and feel and the layout of the system. because this is meant to be, all the key indicators that you're going to want to keep a sharp, focus on. We also give you the ability, to show you, for example, documents on hold outbound. Here you can see as I hover above this, it's going to show me that I have 41 invoices that are currently sitting on hold, right? Because there's an exception, there's a discrepancy. So with one click, now it's very interactive. We're going to take you into the detail. We're going to show you all those invoices that are currently on hold. And it's really just a pre-filtered report showing me documents that are on hold. They're all invoices. They're all meant to go outbound, and it requires our attention. However, with this, because we also want to give you the ability to quickly and easily, do some ad hoc reporting here in Data Masons, I can clear this out. And now we're going to look at all the documents that are going out, all the documents that are being received, along with the ability to filter. So on the fly, right from here, I can come in and I can do a multi, filter on this report, and we can drill into any of the details. So there you can see, I just pulled it up. Now we're only going to be focusing in on, target. So that was one of the elements that I wanted to cover. From there, as you expand your footprint with EDI, it's all about automation. It's all about, making sure that if everything is transacting exactly the way it should be, you really shouldn't have to think about EDI, because Data Masons with our automation, we're doing all of this behind the scenes. The only time that you should really worry about it is if there's an exception, if there's an error that actually requires your attention. So one of the areas that I want to talk about real quick is workflows and tasks. So within Data Masons, here you can see there is a service that is currently running, and you're going to see that we have different workflows, and then we have different tasks that are set up that are automated to run, on a schedule, whether it's once a minute, or once a day or once a week. So when you set up these tasks and workflows, you get to determine when they trigger and fire, based on the schedule that you've set for each one of these activities. When you look at this, you're going to notice that there's tasks and workflows. And the difference is that a task is a specific function within Data Masons that is set to trigger and run, whereas a workflow is really a set of tasks that run in sequence that, automate that process. This is specifically configured for each of our customers based on their business processes. The last piece that I want to cover is the security within Data Masons. So Data Masons, is role-based security. And when we come into our solution, you can see here you have your different users, but then you have the roles that you're able to define, per the user. So from a customer service standpoint, or anybody that needs access to EDI, you really get to control what they can or can't see, what they can or can't do. So when I go into each of these different roles, I get to assign what they can do, and then I assign this role to the individual user. The next element that I'm going to cover is really that seamless experience between Business Central and Data Masons, and really how we're trying to blur the lines between the two products, right? Because we want the user experience to feel seamless. So what we're going to cover is how Data Masons is, tightly integrated, but as mentioned before, loosely coupled, right? Where we're not introducing any customizations, in the ERP to support that EDI initiative. I also want to cover too, the whole concept of managing based on exception. Really, if everything is functioning exactly the way it should be, with EDI, you shouldn't have to worry about it. It's only when there is an error or an exception that we want to communicate that to the business user, the customer service rep, for how they can quickly and easily have visibility to that. And not only that, but also be able to, correct the error on their own without having to involve IT. And then also we're going to cover the Transaction Lifecycle Explorer. TLE is what we refer to that. And we're going to break down the life cycle of an entire order with visibility, into that order. Again, launching right from Business Central to really blur the lines between, the ERP and EDI. And lastly, really just empowering those end users to be able to resolve a lot of these exceptions and errors on their own, again, without having to involve, IT, as part of that process. So I'm going to go back over to Business Central. And the first thing that I want to cover is really how we try to give visibility to those, the end user in terms of everything EDI. So the first thing that I'm going to do is let's go into my orders. And I recently integrated an order right before the meeting. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here. And there you can see I pulled in a new PO, right, from, I called it Innovia 0006. So I'm going to go into this actual order, and we're going to take a look at it. The first thing that I want to cover is the simple fact that when Data Masons, when that order comes in from your trading partner, it's going to end up in your folder. Data Masons is proactively monitoring that folder. We see the new document, we consume the document, we bring it into Data Masons, we then transform the document into our standard, which is XML, and then we apply all your business logic, your validation rules, and so forth against that document. If everything is perfect, we're going to send that over to Business Central, where it's then going to automatically create that new sales order that's waiting for your review. When I come in as a business user and I see this new sales order, you're going to see up here, we're dropping in a simple hyperlink under what we call, under the EDI tab here. And there you're going to see two things. You have the Transaction Lifecycle Explorer, and then you also have visibility to the original purchase order that was sent to you by the trading partner. So I'm going to go into the Transaction Lifecycle Explorer. And what we're going to do now is we're going to give you complete visibility into what that order, that inbound PO actually looked like from Target. So there you can see I have an inbound purchase order. You can see the exact date and time that it was received by Data Masons, into the EDI solution. And here you can see exactly when that document was sent into Business Central to create the sales order. There you can see the original PO, Innovia 006. You can see the status is complete. And then also too, we want to give you visibility into everything EDI. So this is actually going to show you that raw EDI file and what it actually came in as. However, with most business users, they're not going to have a clue what this EDI file represents. So what we do then is we actually give them a human readable HTML report that is going to break down everything about that EDI transaction, that inbound 850 purchase order. So then they know exactly what came in on that PO. So as soon as it launches here, in just a second, you'll be able to see that HTML report. And there it is. So for example, when I'm looking at this document and I'm one of your customer service reps, or I'm a business user, there you can see BEG03 purchase order. We tell you what that purchase order number is. Date, we tell you the date, right? So now I can actually read an EDI file without having EDI experience. And the last piece of this is really right here where you can see accepted. This is where we're giving you visibility that, yes, you received the document. This is your outbound 997, your functional acknowledgement, going back to that trading partner, confirming that you read and received. The next part that I want to cover, from the standpoint of, the overview, is really that whole concept of managing based on exception. So when I talk about the management based on exception, let's say, for example, we processed an order all the way through, and we're sending an outbound invoice to your trading partner. So when that happens, let's say that outbound invoice had an error, or there's missing data, or something was wrong with it. What Data Masons is going to do is, as soon as that document doesn't pass validation, we're going to trap it, we're going to put that document on hold, and then we're going to email your business user or distribution list that this document requires attention and somebody needs to review it and correct it. So we'll send out an email. If that person doesn't get to it right away, we can escalate and we can send another email, or we can send a text message. But ultimately, we're going to communicate to the appropriate person that this document requires, some intervention. So in this case, they would have received that. They would have gotten the email. They would simply go into that invoice, they would open it up, they click on that EDI button again, and it would launch the TLE. So now you can see the entire life cycle of this order as it works its way through the process. You have the inbound PO, you have the outbound 855 purchase order acknowledgement, outbound ship notice, and then of course, there you have the invoice that has errored. So myself as a business user, I would have already seen this error message, but it's not just an error message, right? It's actually the problem that occurred, and then step-by-step instructions for the business user on how to resolve this error on their own. So this really empowers, those business users to actually go in based on role-based security to solve the problem themselves. So all I have to do is hit back. I'm going to go over to the edit button, following the instructions that I was just looking at. Click on edit. It said open up the document root. Go to the collect method, the collection method for freight. I'm going to hit PP for prepaid. We're going to hit save. And then all we have to do is simply reprocess the document. So what Data Masons now just did is we took that outbound invoice, we moved it from a hold status to a ready status, and then with the automation that's running behind the scenes, we're going to reprocess this document, and in just a minute, you're going to see that it successfully was sent to the trading partner. So the next area that I want to cover is more from the customer service aspect, right? So the whole concept here, again, is to make this a seamless experience with D365, BC. So, right from the account card, what we're going to cover is how do we give visibility to everything EDI, whether it's reviewing SAC codes, your ship to cross references, item cross references, the trading partner master setup, and so forth. How do we give visibility to those business users to have that complete EDI picture? And, how can you make changes right from there? So let's go back over to Data Masons, or excuse me, to Business Central. And I'm now going to get out of this order. And we're going to go in, as soon as I get out of there. There we go. And I'm going to go to customers. And we're going to look up that trading partner that we've been working on, Target. So I'm going to go down to Target Components. We're going to open this up. And now, again, we're going to give you that EDI tab here. And when I click on the EDI tab, now I have complete visibility into if I need to access the trading partner. Maybe I need to make an update or a change. Maybe that I need to modify the item cross references or ship to cross references. If I want to view all documents that are currently on hold with Target, it's one click away, and I'll have that ability, to review all that. So for example, right from here, all I have to do if I want to, review the ship to cross references, it's one click. I'm in there. I can now see it. And I can make those appropriate changes as needed. So there's, all your ship to cross references. If I need to actually go in and let's say I want to, change the item number, I can look at all my item number cross references, and it's one click away. And now you're in complete, visibility into everything EDI. So with that, that was really the main element of what I wanted to cover from an overview demonstration, is just that complete visibility into everything EDI from Business Central, again, without having to add or change any core code, within the ERP. So with that, Dennis, I will go ahead and change it back over to you.
Okay, screen. Okay, should see my slide, correct?
Correct.
All right, so perfect. So how can we move you to the cloud confidently? Well, part of it is what you saw there, and a couple of things that Sean mentioned are really important. So first of all, when you go to D365, there is this whole strategy with Microsoft has with this one version where they're going to be doing continuous updates to Business Central, pretty much on a monthly basis. Our solution is the same way. Doing continuous updates, we actually get the versions prior to general release. So we're doing all the testing that needs to happen beforehand, so you're confidently can take that next upgrade, that next version that Microsoft rolls out. Okay, the complex logic, that all happens outside of our system. So all the business processing, business rules processing that has to happens in Data Masons EDI, which sits outside of 365 BC, running in our cloud. Okay, and we're going through the transaction, doing all the validation, making sure that we can have a proper transaction created within BC prior to us sending that message over. Okay, so we know when or the types of things that we have to do before we're sending that data over and back as well, right? So we're processing them back, as Sean showed on the retry for the invoice. We're capturing the information, making sure we're doing validation, not only on the particular data types, but also what has to go back out. And we can recognize the fact that, hey, this isn't going to work. It's missing a piece of important data, and then leading you down the path to how to fix that. Okay. So all that stuff happens on outside of the system itself, outside of 365, I should say. EDI tends to be a mission critical application for most people that play in specific industries, and we'll talk a little about industries in a bit. And when that happens, and when you start to look at a migration plan, when you start to look at an ERP rollout, you want to include the EDI provider in those conversations, right? You're not going to go and build a house and plan it and make it all work, and then later on you call the plumber and say, hey, where's the piping go? Right? Where are those pipes gonna get laid out? You want to include us in there because we can make sure that you're not recommending, or people aren't recommending, changes that would be EDI specific that we have in our core code, in our core functionality, right? So you want to kind of get us involved, and those tend to be the better projects is when we are involved on the front end, right? Because we can reduce the complexity and cost of what that solution is going to be and the choices that you make going forward. So it could be something as simple as looking at your communication methods. Think about how you communicate with your trading partners right now if you're doing EDI, okay? Have you been doing the same communication method for the number of years that you've been working with them, 5, 10, 15 years, right? You might be doing the same thing. However, there were other choices that were rolled out that could put you in a position to trade with them at a less costly amount, all right? You could be in a relationship with them where you've been going through a van for a number of years and paying that. However, years ago, they gave you a direct connect option. You just never took it because, hey, things working, right? So as you step back and start looking at what you're going to do next from an ERP and an EDI perspective, you have the ability now to look and say, okay, does that continue to make sense? Do I have an option to connect with them in a more cost-effective manner? Maybe you want to take a step back as a company and say, does it make sense that I'm actually doing EDI internally myself, right? How many resources do I have that are dedicated to it? What's the cost of going to someone that delivers a full managed service option where EDI can kind of get out of my building? Even though it's still running in my cloud environment or in a different cloud environment, someone else is doing the day-to-day care and feeding of the application, and I can free up my resources to actually concentrate on my business, as opposed to just processing transactions or taking care of the system that processes transactions. So you've got the ability now to reduce the complexity and potentially the cost. Optimization of automation. So Sean just pointed that out. You can automate any of the processes when it comes to EDI. And why is that important? you're in an electronic relationship with people in your supply chain. There's no reason for you to be touching this stuff manually, okay? We've talked to customers before where they're getting up, or prospects, I should say, where they're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning so they can, at home, process the transactions so they're all sitting there when everybody gets to work. There's no reason for that anymore. As you saw with the automation, we can put a time on it, and the number of processes that happen can all be automated. You can process your transactions 3 times a day, 5 times a day. If you want ASNs to go out at night, orders to get downloaded, 4 times a day or every other hour, however you want to do it, we can set up your EDI processes and you can take advantage of full automation. Supply chain agility, as you start to go to the cloud, look at your value chain. Look at the supply chain, the people in your supply chain, and see who actually supports business document integration. Because there are other people out there. It's just not about customers, right? It's about banks, financial institutions. Maybe I want to factor my receivables. Maybe I want to do lockbox transactions and have everything flow through there. Maybe I'm in the food industry and I want to deal with brokers. And a broker has to come and, I have to send out, when I send out my ASNs and my invoices, I'm copying them. I have to carbon copy them on those invoices or the ASNs to know that the things that they sold actually shipped, right? So you've got all these people in your supply chain that actually can support business document integration. And most people get in and say, well, I have to do it with my customers. Now's a chance to step back and take a look at it and say, does this continue to make sense? Okay, what type of agility I can bring to my supply chain? And finally, insights. Sean mentioned about the KPIs, and he talked about and how we can, set it up where people can get information, including customer service reps, or the people who are supporting the EDI processes internally, right? You saw the line between 365 BC and Data Masons EDI get kind of blended a little, where you're just pulling up the browser and it looks like you're in the similar screens. This is on purpose so people don't have to go to a separate system. They don't have to learn a separate system. They can just open up that browser and have that same look and feel and get it. And you saw in the account card where you had access to all the couple of tabs to update the data, right? So whether it's a item cross reference, whether it's a ship to, it all looks the same. So we're trying to put the business users or customer service reps in a position to support themselves, kind of get IT out of it as much as possible. Okay, so transition over, talk about models.
Yes, so as you move to the cloud with BC, we offer our customers a variety of methods to support EDI. We like to say flexible operating models. From at the far left, kind of a more fully managed by you and your staff, where if you want to, you can create your own maps, you can manage all your transactions, you can be the one handling day-to-day operations, to all the way at the other end of the spectrum, where you essentially have outsourced the EDI function to Data Masons, where now you have redundancy, you have trained professionals, that is all they do. They're managing all the day-to-day operations and transactions and looking for exceptions. The one exception is where we don't touch your ERP. So obviously the customer is always responsible for the rules and how they're operating within the ERP world, but everything else we can take care of. And we would like to say that that the more you push to the right, the higher the strategic value we can provide you, because using a old Jeffrey Moore concept of core versus context, we can help you to remove contextual operations in the form of EDI out of your 4 walls and enable you to spend more of your time and energy focused on what makes you unique as a company and your strategic value proposition. So I think we'll move on to looking at some of the industries and capabilities that we provide.
Yep. So when we talk about industries, I mentioned before about mission, EDI being mission critical. Okay. And in particular industries and then subverticals from that, it is a mission critical application. If you get into food and bev and start drilling down into the food, the beverage, maybe produce, or as you go across, it's manufacturing, automotive, retail and fashion, or other consumer packaged goods and high tech areas. As you can see on the slide, we have functionality that goes across all those industries, okay? And then as you break it down, there's individual functionality that's important to specific industries yourself. Like, so from a produce perspective, substitutions are extremely important in the produce world. Or if you move over a couple to the automotive and industrial equipment, forecast and release accounting, replacement logic, CUMES management, right? Those are really key areas from an EDI perspective that are important to those specific industries, right? And most, if not all of these are, I say most of these are all nav to D365 Business Central accounts. And then some of them we've actually moved from an on-prem to a cloud-based solution, like Automanson sitting over there in the retail and fashion. So Automanson makes rugs that they sell across many marketplaces and through the .coms. Okay, and we took them successfully from an on-prem ERP, and which we were actually supporting, and then moved them to D365 Business Central in the cloud. Okay, and so we've already done this with a number. We have over 50 customers now that we've moved to the DM cloud. Okay, which is our cloud-based solution for EDI. So quickly, as we come towards the end, from an implementation perspective, we just want to make sure we touch on some things here. So as you can see, we follow that Microsoft Sure Step methodology, which goes across from diagnostic all the way to operations. But below that, you'll see some of the average phases that we go through from a project planning perspective, an analysis side, installation and configuration, testing and training, rollout, and then monitoring the thing. So those are the 6 main phases that we have that tie back in to the Sure Step methodology that Microsoft has rolled out for Dynamics.
So in summary, I think we'll wrap this up and open it up for questions. We have a few minutes left, but I think working with Data Masons, we've both got the experience in ERP, EDI, as well as helping customers make the migration from on-premise to the cloud. And as a result, we can give you very predictable cost structures as well as reduce risk through the methodology and experience that we provide. We can help, utilize your internal skills in the way that you choose, whether it be on that one end of do-it-yourself, kind of fully managed by you and your staff, or moving to more of a strategic outsourcing type of model. So we're going to help you leverage the low costs associated with the cloud. It's kind of an undeniable value proposition these days that by moving workloads out of your data center into the cloud, you're going to see not only improved performance and security and backup and recovery and those types of things, as well as you're going to remove costs from the system. So I think at this point, we'll open it up for any questions that you may have.
All right. Well, it looks like there's no questions, so great job covering it very well. So thank you again to Dennis, Sean, and Grant for the presentation today. Whether you're joining us live or on demand, we thank you for joining us as well. We have a few more webinars coming up very soon, so you won't want to miss those as well. Next Tuesday, actually, both of them are next Tuesday, June 30th. We have Ryan McBee from iSolutions Payments. He's going to be presenting on how to put your accounts receivable on autopilot. That's at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. And then later that day, we have Daniel Palmer. He's from Innovia Consulting. He'll be presenting on Word layout content controls. That's at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. You can always go to our website to check out some more events. That's inovia.com/events. We have webinars very frequently, so you'll want to check out all the resources available to you there. We just want to also mention the Inovia podcast that is out. It's called the Inovia Conversation, and you can find it on any podcast platform that you use. Steve and Jeff are the hosts from Inovia, and they do about 2 episodes a month, covering a wide range of Business Central topics. So check out the episodes that have aired and make sure you subscribe so you'll know when the new ones come out. We also want to remind you that Inovia Consulting is proud to be a premier sponsor at Community Summit this year, coming up October 6th through 9th in Nashville, Tennessee. Summit is the annual gathering for all Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central and Nav users and supporters. This event is full of great sessions to help you develop leadership skills, improve your Nav BC skills, and learn more about the investment our companies have made and the tool we use to run our businesses every day. So check out our conference page. That's inovia.com/conferences for more details. And there's also a method on there where you can save on your summit registration. So again, we want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our hosts as well, our presenters, and we look forward to seeing you on another Inovia webinar. Have a great day, everyone.